This episode of Expedition Mystery is brought to you by Mastermind, nootropic for supervillains. Whether you're trying to take over the world or cramming for evil medical school, Mastermind, nootropic for supervillains is your go-to cognitive enhancer. A caffeine-free concoction of all natural ingredients, specially formulated to boost your brains when you need it the most. Mastermind, nootropic for supervillains, from drmystery.com. Link in the show notes. The Disappearance of Pirouz Davani. Pirouz Davani, a prominent Iranian leftist activist and editor of the Pirouz newspaper, vanished without a trace on August 28, 1998. His disappearance has left a void in the hearts of those who knew him and raised troubling questions about political intrigue and human rights. Davani, born in 1961, was no stranger to adversity. His activism led to multiple arrests, including a 3-year prison sentence and 50 lashes in 1990. But it was that fateful summer day in 1998 when he stepped out of his Tehran residence and disappeared forever. Davani's name joins a haunting list, the chain murders. Between 1988 and 1998, dissidents, intellectuals, and activists mysteriously vanished in Iran. Their bodies were never recovered. Davani's fate remains intertwined with this dark chapter in Iranian history. Speculation abounds. Some suggest Davani was murdered, while others believe he was abducted by shadowy forces. The truth remains elusive, leaving his family and friends desperate for answers. As of 2024, Pirouz Davani remains missing. The Disappearance of Derrick Engebretson. Derrick Engebretson, an 8-year-old boy from Bonanza, Oregon, vanished on December 5, 1998, while searching for a Christmas tree with his father and grandfather in the Winema National Forest. His disappearance remains one of Oregon's most haunting unsolved cases, despite extensive searches and countless efforts by law enforcement and volunteers. On that fateful day, Derrick, his father Robert, and his grandfather Bob set out to find the perfect Christmas tree in the remote wilderness near Rocky Point in the southern Cascade Range. The area, known for its dense woods and steep terrain, presented a challenge for even seasoned outdoorsmen, let alone a child. The family split up briefly while searching for a tree, with Derrick wandering off on his own, seemingly unaware of the potential danger that awaited him. When Robert and Bob realized Derrick was missing, they immediately began searching the area. However, as darkness fell and temperatures plummeted, their initial efforts proved fruitless. They contacted local authorities, and an extensive search operation was launched. The search for Derrick was a massive undertaking involving hundreds of volunteers, search and rescue teams, helicopters, and canine units. Despite the freezing temperatures, snow, and difficult terrain, searchers scoured the area for days, hoping to find some trace of the young boy. Several clues were discovered during the initial search. Derrick's jacket was found along a road, indicating that he may have attempted to reach safety. Nearby, a snow angel was found, possibly made by Derrick, though this was never confirmed. Searchers also found small marks on trees, which could have been left by Derrick as he tried to navigate through the dense forest. Despite these potential signs, no definitive trace of Derrick was ever found. The search continued for weeks, but as time passed and weather conditions worsened, hopes of finding him alive began to fade. Derrick's disappearance has generated numerous theories, ranging from tragic accidents to more sinister possibilities. One of the most widely accepted theories is that Derrick became disoriented in the forest and succumbed to the harsh winter conditions. The wilderness around Rocky Point is vast and unforgiving, making it easy for someone, especially a child, to lose their bearings. However, other theories suggest that foul play could have been involved. Some believe Derrick may have encountered another individual in the forest who abducted him. Reports surfaced of a mysterious man seen in the area at the time of Derrick's disappearance, but no solid evidence has ever emerged to support this theory. One of the more controversial theories centers around a convicted child predator who was known to frequent the area. In 2001, David Wayne Mason, a man with a history of crimes against children, was named as a person of interest in the case. Although Mason was never charged in connection with Derrick's disappearance, his presence in the region at the time fueled speculation that he could have been involved. Another chilling theory is that Derrick may have been taken by someone who stumbled upon him in the wilderness, only to hide or dispose of his body to avoid detection. This possibility remains a source of debate among those familiar with the case. The disappearance of Derrick Engebretson has had a profound impact on his family, who have struggled for years with the uncertainty of not knowing what happened to their son. Robert Engebretson, Derrick's father, has been vocal in his frustration over the lack of answers, and the pain of losing his son continues to weigh heavily on him and the rest of the family. The case also left a lasting mark on the community of Bonanza, Oregon, and the broader region. Volunteers who participated in the search efforts, many of whom were local residents, were deeply affected by the tragic outcome. The Engebretson family, with the support of the community, has continued to seek answers and closure, but the mystery of Derrick's disappearance endures. More than 2 decades later, the search for Derrick Engebretson remains one of the most notable missing persons cases in Oregon. The case was never officially closed, and law enforcement agencies periodically revisit it, hoping that new evidence or advances in technology might shed some light on what happened to Derrick. In recent years, advancements in search and rescue technology, including improved satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar, have been employed to try to locate any remains or evidence that could provide closure for Derrick's family. However, the dense terrain and harsh weather conditions of the region continue to pose significant challenges for investigators. Derrick's disappearance has also served as a cautionary tale for outdoor safety, particularly for families venturing into remote areas. His case underscores the importance of proper preparation, awareness of surroundings, and the potential dangers that can arise in even the most seemingly innocent outdoor excursions. The disappearance of Derrick Engebretson remains an enduring and tragic mystery. Despite extensive search efforts, myriad theories, and the involvement of both law enforcement and volunteers, no definitive answers have been found. His case serves as a reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the devastating impact that a missing child can have on a family and community. As the years pass, the hope for answers persists, but the likelihood of finding closure diminishes. For Derrick's family, the pain of not knowing what happened to their son is a daily reality, and the search for the truth continues. The disappearance of Paul Skiba, Sarah Skiba, and Lorenzo Chivers. The mysterious disappearances of Paul Skiba, his 9-year-old daughter Sarah, and Lorenzo Chivers on February 7, 1999, in Westminster, Colorado, remain an unsolved case that has perplexed authorities for decades. Paul owned a moving company, and he and his employee Lorenzo had just finished a job when they vanished, along with Sarah, who had been spending the weekend with her father. Despite extensive searches and investigations, the case remains cold, with the bodies never found and no solid leads pointing to their whereabouts. Paul Skiba, a hard-working man with a young daughter, owned Tough Movers, a small moving company in Westminster, Colorado. On the weekend of February 7, 1999, Paul, his daughter Sarah, and Lorenzo Chivers, one of his employees, were finishing up a moving job. Sarah, who lived with her mother Michelle Russell, had been with her father for a weekend visit. The family seemed to have been enjoying their time together, but little did anyone know that this weekend would be the last time they were seen alive. On February 7th, Paul, Lorenzo, and Sarah were expected to return to the company's yard after finishing the moving job. However, by the following morning, there was no sign of them, and no one had heard from any of the three. Sarah's mother became increasingly concerned when Sarah failed to return home, and she alerted the authorities. The disappearance of the 3 individuals quickly raised alarms, prompting an investigation. When authorities arrived at the Tough Movers' yard to investigate, they discovered disturbing evidence that suggested foul play. The moving truck Paul and Lorenzo had been driving was found parked at the yard, but it showed signs that something sinister had taken place. The truck was covered in blood splatters, and inside were bullet holes and what appeared to be blood stains. Investigators also found bullet casings nearby, further suggesting that violence had occurred at the scene. Additionally, the scene looked as if there had been an attempt to clean up the evidence, heightening suspicion that someone had tried to cover their tracks. The location of the truck and the suspicious condition of the yard led investigators to believe that Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo had either been killed or abducted there. Despite the forensic evidence found at the yard, it was clear that someone had gone to significant lengths to hide the crime. Authorities speculated that the truck might have been used to transport the bodies away from the scene, but no trace of Paul, Sarah, or Lorenzo has ever been found. Their disappearance became even more baffling because the bodies were never located despite thorough searches. Over the years, several theories have emerged about what may have happened to Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo. One theory posits that the trio was targeted due to personal vendettas against Paul. Some who knew Paul mentioned that he had been involved in disputes, both personal and professional, which could have escalated into a fatal confrontation. However, no concrete evidence has ever surfaced to support this theory, and the investigation failed to uncover anyone with a clear motive to harm Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo. Another theory suggests that the disappearances were the result of a robbery or other random act of violence. The moving business often involved handling valuable items, and it is possible that Paul and Lorenzo were caught in a dangerous situation while working. However, this theory also lacked definitive evidence, as there was no indication of robbery at the yard or any signs that valuable items were missing. One of the most chilling aspects of the case is the possibility that someone with knowledge of the area, and perhaps the moving business itself, was involved in the crime. The calculated nature of the crime scene, including the blood found on the truck and the apparent cleanup attempt, suggests a degree of planning and forethought. This has led some to believe that the perpetrator may have been someone familiar with Paul's routine or the layout of the yard. Despite extensive efforts by law enforcement, including searches in and around the Westminster area and interviews with individuals who might have had knowledge of the case, no substantial leads have ever been uncovered. The lack of physical evidence has stymied investigators, and without the discovery of the bodies or further forensic clues, the case remains cold. The emotional toll on the families of Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo has been immense. Michelle Russell, Sarah's mother, has publicly expressed her heartbreak and frustration over the years, describing how painful it has been to live without knowing what happened to her daughter. The uncertainty surrounding Sarah's fate has been particularly devastating for her mother, who has spent years hoping for answers. For the Chivers family, the disappearance of Lorenzo has been equally distressing. As a dedicated employee and family man, Lorenzo's sudden disappearance left a void in the lives of his loved ones. His family has pushed for renewed attention to the case in the hopes that even the smallest piece of information might bring them closer to finding out what happened. The impact on Paul Skiba's family has been profound as well. His disappearance not only left his family in a state of grief, but also led to the collapse of his moving business. The uncertainty surrounding his fate has weighed heavily on his relatives, who continue to seek justice and closure. Despite the cold status of the case, investigators have not given up. Over the years, there have been occasional tips and new angles of investigation, but none have led to a resolution. Advances in forensic science have given some hope that new evidence might one day be discovered, potentially shedding light on what happened to the three individuals. In 2021, the families of the victims appealed to the public for any information that might bring closure to the case. The lack of answers has not only prolonged the suffering of the families, but also left a dark cloud over the community of Westminster, where the disappearances continue to be a haunting reminder of the unresolved case, the unsolved mystery. The disappearances of Paul and Sarah Skiba and Lorenzo Chivers remain one of the most perplexing unsolved cases in Colorado. Their vanishing without a trace has left authorities and their families grappling with unanswered questions for more than 2 decades. Despite the extensive evidence found at the scene, including blood, bullet holes, and signs of a struggle, the trio's whereabouts remain unknown. The hope for a breakthrough in the case endures, but until then, the mystery of what happened to Paul, Sarah, and Lorenzo lingers in the minds of those who knew and loved them. Some people disappear without a trace, as if the hand of some eldritch thing reached out from the shadows and took them. Some no doubt met a terrible end at the hands of their fellow man. Others still came by their fate by their own hand. Whatever the case, if you have any knowledge of the fate of any of the aforementioned cases, reach out to the relevant authorities so that the families of the missing might find some closure. Like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this narration. Expedition Mystery, signing off.